Right, good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock. Mike Eisted here, Head of Delivery for Facilities, Workplace Management Leadership, and I'm here with one of my learning partners, Adam. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
And today we're going to be going through Unit 1, a holistic foundation workshop, which basically aims to give you basic understanding of the learning outcomes for the entire of Unit 1. And currently we're on the first screen there. And what's going to happen throughout this whole process is I'm going to be chopping and changing screens and all sorts of things. So you please bear with me. We'll also be having plenty of breaks as well in order to break the videos up, and I'll make these videos available to you afterwards for review or whatever. Okay.
Great.
Couple of bits of workshop sort of prelims, as they call it, sort of workshop discipline. I'm going to ask you to mute your microphone. So see at the bottom there where the microphone is. If you just mute your microphone, that's it. And because that way I won't get any feedback then. Yeah. So do you know how to mute it? Oh, he has muted it. There we go. Look, he has muted it. Great. So that's just while I'm talking. That doesn't stop you, please, unmuting and butting in or asking a question anytime. And it's very important that both you and I understand that going forward that you're only going to get out of this what you put in. There's only two of us, so we're both going to be having to do some activities and stuff. Yeah. So the reason why the microphone is muted is not so that you don't talk. But so that there is no feedback. So please, when you want to say something, just unmute it and far away. Like I said, plenty of notes, and we'll be using lots of various different teaching media, i.e., PowerPoint and YouTube and all sorts of things. Great. I'll also conduct a register of this, and I'll register your time with me for this period, and I'll make sure that that's logged in your journal for off the job. Cool. Right. Well, let's crack on. So here's our format for today. We're going to be looking at OneFile and Padlet in a minute. A quick orientation administration. OneFile, as you know, is your online electronic portfolio for your apprenticeship, and Padlet is your online resource library. That resource library is bespoke. In other words, everything on there has been either created by me or filtered by me for the specific units or content. It's not a case of you just being thrown into a metaphoric electronic version of London's library and told to find your information. Providing you use a little bit of logic, you will be able to find what it is that you need to look for, and we'll go through that in a minute. Then we're going to play a quick game, Kahoot. I'm going to ask you to fire up your mobile phone for that, because I want to know what it is you already know. And I want you to realise that this is just a game just to give you an idea of the sort of content of this first unit. It's not used as a measurement system whatsoever. Clearly a lot more fun than when there's more than two of you. But for now, it'll just be the two of us, and we'll see how we get on. Then we'll look at the workshop aim and learning outcomes. We'll then look at introduction to FM. We'll look at 3 different business sectors, and we'll look at the FM journey. What is FM all about? When did it start and why? Then we'll define facilities management. What is facilities management actually all about? We'll then determine what the roles of facilities management is. Your own specific area being grounds maintenance is but one area of many areas of FM, but you are most certainly part of the FM industry, integral actually. Then we'll look at strategic sourcing. How do we deal with suppliers, and how do we measure their performance, and why do we measure it? And then finally, we'll just have a quick reminder of what the modern facilities manager is before rounding off. Like I said, there'll be lots of breaks. Feel free, if there isn't a break that I've injected, just to jump in and say, Mike, I need to go for a break or whatever. By all means, just give me a heads up, and I'll just stop recording, or not. Like I said, the recording will be made available to you afterwards. Cool. Right. Well, let's crack on. So, what I want you to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Stop sharing. There we go. What I want you to do is I want you to go to worldwidewebkahoot.it, or on your mobile phone, please. I want you to search for an app called Kahoot. It's used in university. So if it's all right for them, it's all right for us. It's used in colleges and in schools. It's only a tiny little game. It's perfectly safe. And it's got all the sort of Apple and Google clearances and all the rest of it. And this is a mainstay of the course. Every workshop, there is a Kahoot session either at the beginning or at the end. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to download that. Now, whilst you're doing that, because hopefully you're doing that while I'm talking, I'm going to get it going. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you when it's ready. Let's make sure that our volume is down. So I'm going to reshare my screen with you. And it should be on that one. So you should be able to see the screen now. And on the background there, you can see some a video playing. And you've got a... let me just check that's working. Yeah, there's a bit of sound there. And you should be able to see that PIN code there. And all you need to do is you need to enter that PIN code. Feel free to unmute your mic at this point. I'm just going to fire my Kahoot version up. Trying together Kahoot. So enter PIN. And it's very simple. You know, it's all quite logical. You enter the PIN code. Oh, there you are. You're there already. Groovy Camel. Brilliant. I'm right behind you. 497804. Spin. Go. There we go. Bright Wallaby. I'm in. Now, this is a really simple game, Adam. So what's going to happen is you're going to see some questions on the screen. And I want you to do is I want you to answer those questions by pressing the appropriate color on your mobile phone. And you don't have to, once you've pressed it once, that's it. You then wait for the timer to reach 0. Each question is given a set amount of time from 5 to 20 seconds. Cool. Right. Let me just, it's typical, isn't it? My phone's just said that it's low on battery. Talk about preliminaries and preparing. Here we go. Good. All in. Right. Cool. Okay. You ready? You can unmute your mic now. We might as well go live for this one. Cool.
Yeah,
all good?
All good.
Right. Here we go then. Okay. So let's give it a go. We're going to start. Here we go. 3 seconds then. Question on the screen, answer on the phone. In terms of space, NLA is an abbreviation for what? Net leasable area, yeah. And a term that you're going to come across quite a bit. You know, net leasable area is the is what the abbreviation stands for. Now, just a reminder, you know, this is not for you to measure. You know, how well you know FM or anything like that. This is just, you know, a simple little game in order for you to evaluate, you know, what you do know and what you don't know. You're not being measured anyway. It's just a bit of fun. That's all.
So net leasable area, will we go into that of what that actually means?
Sorry, say yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll teach you what net leasable area means and all sorts. Yeah, I mean, you're a specialist in grounds maintenance. I mean, imagine if you're a facilities manager that you know, looked after a region or multiple locations and looked after properties and moving businesses and so on. Net leasable area is the sort of thing that you come across all of the time. Whereas if I turned around to them and started talking to them about, you know, grounds maintenance or, you know, routines or regimes, they probably wouldn't have a clue. You know, different horses for different courses. That's all it's about. All right, next question then. What is not one of the 3 main business sectors? Yeah, education, believe it or not, is not a business sector. It is either part of the private sector or part of the public sector. So education is not a sector. Cool. Bright Wallaby is storming out of the entry gates there, leaving Groovy Camel wandering around in circles, not sure whether to start going or not, but I'm sure it will pick up. What is not an FM service? So what's not an FM service? Yeah, it's off the shelf, believe it or not, because there's no such thing as a facilities management package for a client, organization, or business, which is on the shelf, which is a term used for a package that is ready to go, no different than you going and buying, a loaf of bread from Tesco's. There's lots of different choices, but bread is bread. It's in the bag, ready to go. And there's no such thing as an off-the-shelf solution for facilities management. Facilities management provides services to clients, businesses, and organizations exactly what they want. Whether that's a managing agent, a contractor, in-house, or a hybrid model. But there's no such thing as an off-the-shelf solution. Bright Wallaby, as we would expect, is bouncing down the tracks now. The Groovy Camel has now decided to take a dump or wander around in a circle some more. But don't, like I said, don't take it to heart. This is just a bit of fun. Cost savings and cost synergies mean the same thing. Yes or no? True or false? Red is false, blue is true. Yeah, well done. Yeah, do you want to tell me why?
It was more just a guess, to be honest, Mike. It was
that's
cost
all right.
savings is. Cost savings is all about efficiencies, reducing costs. Synergies is around what I see it as. What I perceive it as is kind of that data collection and everything else. So it's that sort of future planning and things like that.
Yeah, you're not far wrong. Yeah, cost synergies is all about creating, ideally, a cost saving. That's not to say that you can't induce a cost saving for the business, by business acumen and negotiation with clients and contractors. But cost synergies is a way in which you can reduce a cost by bundling different sorts of services. So, so let's say, for example, you've got a lift to manage. I'm trying to do it to grounds maintenance, but I don't know enough of grounds maintenance, which is why you're going to help me understand it more during your journey. But let's say you've got a lift to manage. The law says that the legislation says that needs to be tested at least twice a year, once for insurance purposes, once for maintenance purposes. And then depending on how many people use it, i.e. the footfall, and depending on the size of the building and the size of the lift, would determine the risk that you tolerate as to how often that servicing would be. Likely that you would reduce servicing to every quarter or even monthly sometimes, and still have your compulsory 6-month testing and 6-month maintenance logged. And it's at times like that when you can reach out to organisations, because sometimes they're done by different organisations, and saying to them, look, you do our insurance, maintenance on our lift, and we have our 6-monthly maintenance done by a different company currently. What I would like is to be able to bundle that with you, and I'm going to be open and honest about what our costs are. What can you do it for? And I want a cost saving out of this. One of the worst things that is done, believe it or not, is not being truthful with clients or suppliers by saying, I want to induce a cost saving. So in that scenario there, you're reducing suppliers, which is always a good thing because of risk and tolerance. And at the same time, you're reducing cost. So synergies is about combining different services to one supplier in order to induce a cost saving. Right, next one. The Groovy Camel has now got off the line. We're pleased about that. The question 5, business attitudes to FM in the 2010s is looking for professionalisation. Yeah, it's actually about innovation, actually. That's not to say that you're wrong. That's not to say that you're wrong, because actually it's always looking for professionalisation. But in general terms, on the sort of FM industry pathway, the 2010s to 2020s was all about professionalising. It was about creating qualifications for facilities management and really creating a tangible career path. 2020 or 2010 onwards, really, 2020 onward, now we're in the innovation phase. We're in about, using different systems to produce, different different systems to produce different outcomes. So professionalization was really in the 2000s to 2010, just to clarify, around about there. That's when courses started to be produced and Ofqual accredited and really have weight. And part of that journey was obviously looking at how we can become chartered. We're now 20 years later, and we're still on that journey, hopefully, for it to become realized in the next year or so. Cool. Right. Next question. ACOPs are the highest form of legislation. True or false? Now, the quicker you answer, the more points you get. Yes, sadly, it's false. ACOPs means an approved code of practice. And an approved code of practice is essentially a guide, best practice guide that's been put together where the distributing organisation is not legally held responsible for it. So, for example, health and safety. If you look at health and safety and you look at legislation, the highest level is an act or legislation. That then reduces down to regulations, and then beneath that are ACOPs. And if you go on to your Padlet, which we've left out the orientation, which we'll come back for, or if you go onto the Health and Safety Executive website and you look at the documents that they offer the public for advice and guidance, they're all what we call ACOPs, approved codes of practice. And the reason for that is that you can have an ACOP on asbestos and handling asbestos, which is about 15 pages, of which actually, probably 10 pages are pictures. The font is about size 30. And actually, if you were to put that into Times New Roman, it is probably one A4 side of writing. An ACOP is an easy to read guide, which means that you haven't got to go and read 250 pages of legislation, which is full of, as you would expect, legal speak and so forth. So it's not the highest form of legislation. Legislation or an act is the highest form of legislation. All right, still with me?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, next question then. Question 7. CSR abbreviates to what? Well done. Do you want to tell me about it?
Yeah, corporate social responsibility is everything from, so I'll set on the environmental working group here, so it's everything from environmental performances, things like emissions, carbon, offsetting, waste management, all that sort of stuff. That's what that's what I sort of see it as, impacts on lands and water and all that sort of stuff, greenhouse gas emissions.
Absolutely right. All of that. Excellent answer. Well done.
It's quite a big area, isn't it? I mean, it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is typical of the Western world. It is an industry. It's a huge area. I like to say corporate social responsibility is a business or organization's moral and ethical duty to the environment, to people, and to infrastructure. That's how I sort of define corporate social responsibility. But as you so correctly say, it is much more than a single statement, or a single sentence. It is everything. It is about being responsible for the environment and for people in a morally and ethical right way. Good answer. Well done. Question 8. Which 3 support services could define facilities management outputs? Loads of time. Compliance, tendering and health and safety, red. Space planning, concierge services and cost analysis, blue. Human resources, account management, reception staff, yellow. And help desk, project management and asset tracking, green. Well done. It's all of them. Slightly trick question, but that just shows the sort of variation of facilities management outputs. The truth of the matter is that you could have had many more blocks on there that define facilities management output. You could have had on there grounds maintenance. You could have on there estate management. You could have had lots of different things on there. So and that is a leading answering foundation question, if you like, because it's just making us realise that FM is a huge industry. It's almost as if the individual component parts of facilities management, because they're not overtly governed by a governing body, or because they're not governed by best practice, or because they're not governed and there's too much competition, that businesses and organisations over the last 30 years have bundled them in to what is facilities management. And so the offset of that, or the offshot of that, is a huge industry which covers many specialist areas. Cool. Groovy Camel, only 5,000 points behind. Doing well. 9 of 13. By 2021, the UK FM industry will be at a value of what? Yeah, £139 billion. The UK FM industry alone will be at 139 billion. That's the value of the contracts, the value of the suppliers, the value of profit, the value of markup, the value of everything. It's about between 8 and 10% GDP of the entire country. So it's not a drop in the ocean. This is a lot of money, and with money, of course, becomes influence. So it's a huge industry. Question 10. FM is best described as supporting a core business, everything inside a building, everything on a roof, which is yellow, or building fabric, which is green. Supporting a core business, red, everything. Of course. Well done. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, because it's supporting an organisation. So from my point of view, I was sort of thinking, well, the university is an educational sector, but we support, for them to deliver education, we support everything around that, really. So whether it's building maintenance or health and safety or grounds, gardens, everything, you're basically supporting for the organisation to deliver what the fundamental thing is, to deliver students with a qualification, and you're supporting that to achieve that, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah. Bad facility managers, and there are plenty out there, forget that. They start to become a little bit parochial and nepotistic and start to look after their own budgets and almost become misaligned to the organisation. And the key thing with supporting a core business is to make sure you're also strategically aligned. If in your case the university is going through a process of change following COVID-19, and it's got to rein in the spending anchors, you don't want to be going out the following quarter or the next day and ordering a whole brand new roller for grounds maintenance, or bringing in the tree surgeons or whatever. It's about being not just supporting the core business, but being aligned strategically to the business. If your business is on about saving money, then you should be doing everything you can to induce cost savings, or at the very least, not spend.
Yeah, one thing I've seen across the sector, and it's the biggest fundamental flaw, I think, in our sector as grounds and gardens and horticulture, is that that people don't realise that the customer, you're doing something for a customer, you're doing something for a student experience, an end service experience, and groundsmen, groundspersons, gardeners forget that. They see it as their own little empire. And that's one of the biggest problems, I think, in our sector, that they forget that they are a supporting service rather than the people in charge near enough.
Yeah, and there is a fine line, isn't there, between being nepotistic and putting your arms around something and saying this is all mine, and actually taking pride in your work. And it is a fine line, and certainly we find in FM the sort of younger facilities manager, or the less experienced ones, once they're bedded into an organisation or a process of work, they do start to become a little bit sort of nepotistic, very sort of parochial. The amount of times I've had facility managers that will work for me, and when I look at the budget and spend, the locations where they spend more than those locations where I didn't have facility managers, because they're in their own little sort of empire. So yeah, you've got to be strategically aligned, as well as supporting the core business. Thank you for that input. That was absolutely worthwhile listening to. Great value. Cool. I'm so much looking forward to learning with you, because I know very little about grounds maintenance. I used to give a few contracts and so forth out, and I think probably in the position I was, very sort of demanding. So it'd be interesting on your journey for you to educate me. That's what I want out of this.
I mean, one of the things. Sorry if I'm going to be videoing this, but one of the things that I wanted this for is to aim long term, and I'm talking quite a few years, is as kind of consultancy to bridge the gap. Where I find if you go and speak to a grounds manager, head grounds, and they'll tell you that you need to buy this seed because this seed is the best seed and it will give you the best pitch. But actually, there's a fag paper between every single seed, for example, of fertilizer.
Yeah.
And it's all around bridging the gap where facilities manager, like you just said, will easily just contract it out or have to take the advice from that head groundsman or head gardener because of the lack of knowledge. So you just have to take that as gospel. But there is this thing where the head gardener will read the local magazine of, oh, this is what the industry are doing, this is what Leicester City Football Club are doing, so we should do that. But it isn't. And it's bridging that gap, and that's one of the big things I want to kind of do with this, really.
Well, I think that's admirable, and I think there is absolutely a place for it in the industry, because it is one of the areas, in my view, that there are no large companies out there that provide grounds maintenance and gardens and horticulture and so on. Most of them are small organisations, and they provide their own consultancy services. It's very difficult to benchmark, and there aren't any sort of independent advisors. If there were, then in my previous role, I would have put one on a retainer, so that I had him or her on the end of a phone. So you're right to look at it as perhaps a gap in the industry. Absolutely. Let's crack on. But great to hear that. The FM industry in support of business in the 70s was what? Was it strategically focused? Blue. Tactically focused? Green. Operationally focused? Yes. What do you think we mean by operationally focused?
So the operational side of it. So I'd imagine going back many years ago, so when my brother was younger in his generations, that it was all around just that operational, that get the job done, get everything in line, do that. There wasn't probably the long-term strategy of looking at that 10-year period. It was kind of, let's get it done this way, task focus all around that, rather than thinking of stuff at the bigger picture potentially. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It was very, very, very now, and get it done, and not really caring about the cost. This was the boss that would turn around and say, Adam, here is 10 quid. Go down the road and get me 200 fags. While you're down there, get me some milk and get me a newspaper as well. And lunchtime, if you got change from that, go and get some rolls for everybody. That was FM. That's how it started, essentially. Very operationally focused. And you'll see a video that I put together which actually gives you a timeline, a historical timeline of how it formalized. But facilities management started very operational, and particularly during the 70s. Exactly as you say. Right, coming towards the end then. Bright Wallaby way out there in front now, but Groovy Camel certainly got into its groove. 3,190. I guarantee if there's time we do this at the end of this, you'll score far more points. So it's worth noting down how many points that you do get. Question 12 of 13. Double points this one. Come on, Adam. Disaster recovery means getting business back up and running. Yes, specifically after a fire. Red. Yes, specifically after an IT incident. Blue. Yes, specifically after a gas leak. Yellow. And yes, specifically after flooding. Green.
I would say all of them, but I'll choose green.
Yeah. Now it is after an IT incident. Now, believe it or not, business continuity is something that is formalised via the government. So disaster recovery is solely relative to IT and the backup systems for IT. The trouble is, of course, is that word disaster. Because when you say disaster to me, I'm thinking that the world's going to collapse in on itself and a meteorite's going to come out of the sky and a tsunami is going to appear. And disaster, most of us who are not in the IT industry, we hear the word disaster and we immediately think that that's something to do with, something catastrophic like a fire or gas leak or flooding. But actually it's to do with It's to do with data, which you could, in theory, put in parity with catastrophic. You know, if a business lost all of its data and that business was an organization which makes money out of data, let's say, for example, banking or insurance or any sort of finance, then, you know, that is catastrophic. So it might not be catastrophic to the environment, but it is catastrophic to that organization. And as a result of that, it's called disaster recovery, and it's solely and specific relative to IT. The other areas that we looked at there, fire, gas, flooding, all those sorts of areas that we naturally associate with the word disaster, actually is called emergency response. You know, what do you do when you come into Leicester one day? There's been heavy rain over the weekend, the whole thing's flooded. You know, how do you ensure and continuity of the services that you provide? So, yeah, so disaster recovery solely for an IT incident. Right, last question then. Question 13 of 13. Which is a functional role of facilities management? A, credit control, we regulations, blue, financial efficiency, yellow, or recruiting, green. Credit control, we regulations, financial efficiency, or recruit, well done, financial efficiency. Well, now, do you want to talk about that? Why is financial efficiency a role? Or did you use common sense and logic?
Yeah, I just sort of broke it down. Yeah, financial efficiency. I just thought, well, that is. I mean, it's a key part of my role of making sure that the service is as efficient as possible to support that bigger organisation. You've got to be making sure that that service is always challenging, always making sure that you're efficient. So that's kind of what I went down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're absolutely right. It's exactly that. There's sort of 5 functional roles, if you like, and all the various different areas can fit into those 5 functional roles. A financial efficiency, as you say, cost savings, cost synergies, you know, it's all about cost. You know, even though you provide a great service, the fact of the matter is in FM or in any of the FM industries, the bottom line is you are a cost. When it comes to the balance sheet, there is a cost that goes out for grounds and gardens, maintenance, horticulture, and looking after the estate. That's your responsibility. So you are a cost. If you are the facilities manager for the main building and so on, you are still a cost. So financial efficiency, you know, is something that is part and parcel of what it is that we do. No one can charge, you know, Leicester University an unfair cost when it comes to grounds maintenance, because they've got to go through you and you're their organization's expert. So you are part of, you know, the university's financial efficiency strategy is to make sure that they've got the appropriate person that's responsible for allocating funds for grounds maintenance. Likewise, that transcends from you down into your functions. So financial efficiency, yeah, is a role of facilities management. Cool. Well, who won then? Well, crikey, I'm not quite sure actually. Well, no one came third. You definitely came second. 4,025. It's not bad, to be honest. It's not bad. And if I didn't come first, I should sack myself. Simple as that. Also, I should sack myself. I'm the one who wrote it. So if I don't win it, interestingly enough, it's always a competitive thing. You know, whether you can beat Mike on Kahoot, and I have been beaten once. You know, and I wrote it, and someone beat me, and it was the second time we'd done it, but I was so pleased for them. But yeah, excellent. Cool. Right, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Okay, so I'll stop there now. I can now close that. So let's close that, and let's refire this back up. Okay, going to refire that back up there, and we're going to put that up. There we go. Sorry, you can't see this, but I've got so many things that are open at the same time. Right, let's get back onto this. Okay, so yeah, there we go. So you should now be able to see the Kahoot screen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. So before we crack on, however, I want to just give you a quick 2-minute orientation on Padlet, because the bottom line is that Padlet is our resource library that I've created for you and for other learners, and you will get out of it the time that you put into it. There is nothing that we will go through that isn't on here, and all the documentation on here is either a formal documentation or documentation that's been created for you. So what I'm going to do is, I'm sharing the wrong screen, is I'm going to share the screen where it is, which is that. Whoops. Open share, which is this one. So you should be able to see that now. This is a difficulty of remote delivery. You don't have this problem when you're in the same room. So forgive me and apologies, but this is how we have to make it all work. So you're looking at now the Padlet wall, and I believe I've sent you the link, haven't I?
Yeah, I've got it up on my screen as well, yeah.
Awesome, excellent. Now, the key thing is that what you're looking at here is the main menu. Underneath here, you can see level 2 current unit endpoint assessment. That's not relevant to you, nor is this relevant to you. Level 4 current unit or level 4 endpoint assessment. The level 3 current unit and endpoint assessment, the current unit is the unit that's being taught to the majority of those that are on level 4. Sadly, this does level 3. Sadly, this does not include you at this stage until this unit has been completed. When this unit has been completed and you're aligned with those others who are being taught the same content as you, all you have to do is click into here. That will open up a Padlet, and everything that you see here in front of you now is relevant to the current unit that you're studying, relevant to the last workshop. And in here you will find the assignment, you'll find here the deck that you've been presented, you'll find the previous any previous workshops and all the resources for those where they are. Then you'll find some bespoke handouts and all different color codes. This is pink, these are yellow, and up at the top here you can see there's a color code system up here. And I think on your induction orientation we went through this, so I won't spend too long going through it. What I wanted to do though was I wanted to point you towards this area, FM subjects, because right now we're going through Introduction to Facilities Management. So if you click in the FM subjects area, it'll open up the next Padlet, and here you can see what is FM. Now that is essentially what you're doing. You are looking at Introduction to FM. You're finding out what FM is all about. So you should use this particular Padlet for any research to answer any of the criteria before you go out into the big wide world on the interweb. So everything that you need within reason is in here. So if we click in here, we can now see, again, remembering the color code up here, which will give you a good idea as to what it is that you're looking at. We're looking at trends, we're looking at videos, how FM started, we're looking at a picture here, a guide on FMs, roles and responsibilities, and so on and so on. Now, all of this here will help you answer criteria for your first unit. We're going to leave this open. I'm going to stop sharing because we'll be coming back to this shortly. Any questions on any of that, Adam?
No.
Great. So back to our presentation. So we should be back onto the Kahoot screen now. So let's crack on. So there's our workshop aim. I'll let you read that for yourself. Hopefully you can see that. I think the key thing to take away from this, bearing in mind we're 40 minutes in and we're just starting, but it's very important that we have that sort of prelims at the beginning. Incidentally, before we carry on, how did you find the Kahoot there? Did we play that before on your induction? I can't remember.
No, we didn't. No.
But it's quite useful, isn't it?
Yeah, I like learning that way. It's very good.
And you should be able to go back to that and do that again. It's public. It's a public Kahoot that and all those have been created for you, essentially for learners, for my learning partners. They're not ones that I've just pulled in out there. You know, they are mine. I've wrote them. So feel free to run that again. But as I said, you know, after this workshop, you do that one again, and actually you'll find you'll get them all right. And the proof is in the pudding, because when you tried, you know, when you had to go at the beginning there, you know, you got quite a few wrong. But as I said, use nothing other, not as a measurement of performance, just measurement of current knowledge. That's all. So while you're reading the introduction to FM, the workshop there, let me just emphasize a couple of things. Firstly, this particular workshop is for an entire unit. That entire unit is Unit 1, which is Introduction to FM. And after this workshop, outside of the recording on OneFile, I will send you your assignments. And your assignments for this first unit will use various different evidence methods. There will be a written piece of work that you will need to do. There will be a couple of presentations that you will need to put together. And then there will be a professional discussion that you and I will have on Learning Outcome 5. And as I said, outside of this workshop, if you've got time after this, I'll very happily walk you through those. Otherwise, they'll be sent to you on one file and you'll do them on one file. I'm keen to move you on quickly. I know that it's been a long old road for us to get to where we are now. So in my view, 2 to 3 weeks is probably the most that I would advise you to take for Unit 1. And on that, I just want to reiterate that statement there, advise you. Not a question of I'm giving you, advise you. This is your course, your apprenticeship, not mine. I'm not waving a tutor wacky stick or anything like that by saying, get it in, Adam, it needs to be 3 weeks. This is your course. If you turn around to me and you say, Mike, I need to take more time, then that is unquestionable in my view. You need to take more time. If I crop up and say, look, not being funny, it's now been 3 months, how are things? Can I help in some way? So please just bear that in mind, that throughout this journey, this is your course, your apprenticeship. You're in charge of it, and when it comes to setting your assignments, I will advise on what that time period should be, and you should do your best to meet it to stay on track. All right.
Yeah.
And the other final thing is that it's impossible. We would need more than 2 hours. We would need a whole day at least for me to teach you what they call per criteria, to teach you absolutely everything that you need to know, for this particular unit. And that simply isn't going to happen because it's a level 3. And a level 3 is akin to an A level. And as I've said to you, a level 3 in FM, in my view, is equivalent to a foundation degree. It's right up there with a level 5. So it's quite in depth. So the best thing that I can do is give you knowledge and share knowledge with you, which gives you a robust foundation understanding of what the unit is about and what the content is about, in order that you can then launch yourself by using the Padlet that I've shown you, using the books that we've spoken about on induction orientation, and launch yourself out into self-directed study to evidence criteria. All right?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, let's crack on. So there we go. Now I'm almost bored. I'm almost bored of hearing myself. Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Do you want to give me a break? Do you want to read some of this?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it. I'll mute my.
Facilities management is responsible for as much as 8% of the UK's gross domestic product, GDP. And the sector employs up to 10% of the country's workforce, according to a report by the British Institute of Facilities Management, the BIFM. Published on World FM Day, the report value of annual gross market at 1.1 trillion. It said the UK market was regarded as the most mature and competitive in Europe, with most estimates putting its value in 2017 as high as 120 billion. This is expected to rise to an estimated 139 billion by 2021. This increase in value is attributed to the number of total FM deals where providers are integrated into their clients' operating teams. In recent years, we have seen facilities management extend its remit and take a more proactive role across the broader spectrum of activities, said the BIFM Acting Chief Linda Husmanis. Because the sector employed such a large proportion of the total UK workforce, she added, it had an important role to play on issues such as social value, the national living wage, and the industrial strategy currently in development.
Excellent. Yeah. Just a quick one to Mo. Hi, Mo. Don't put your camera on, please. I think you know the drill anyway from Unit 15. But good to see you. We just finished Kahoot, etc. And we've not long started, so I'll just carry on. A normal score. Have your microphone muted. That doesn't stop you from unmuting it and jumping in any time for a chat or whatever. Adam, yes. Thank you for reading that. A couple of things to take away from that. 139 billion. Remember that. And of course, BIFIM. So this was written, previous to 2019. because BIFM is now IWFM. No change apart from a name change, and all part of the professionalisation journey. So quite a substantial statement, isn't it? 8% of the UK's gross domestic product, and employs up to 10% of the country's workforce. Well, 10% of 66 million, is what? What do you think it is? 10% of 66 million. This is me inducing maths into a lesson. 660,000? Any advance on 660,000, anybody?
So what was it? 6.6 million.
66 million. So 10% of that must be 6.6 million, isn't it? What did I say? 660,000? I need to re-go and do my math, don't I? So yeah, I mean that's 6.6 million, isn't it, Mo?
Yeah, something around that. Yeah,
Yeah, so 66 million, I think, is our population. So 10%, 6.6 million in the country's workforce, the FM sector. That's an incredible amount of people. So, yeah, this is basically telling us what? The FM industry is 10% of the country's population, just in this country alone, and almost up to 10% of the UK's GDP. So it's not a back player. It's not a soft player. It's a big player, and it's only going to grow. Cool. Right. Okay. Let's look at the three main business sectors. Now, there are three main business sectors in general. The first is the private sector. The second is the public sector, and the third is the voluntary sector. Now, there are other sectors. You could say PFI, Private Finance Initiative, was a sector, but actually it's not, because the PFI is a public sector initiative that uses private sector money. Now, they're clearly differentiated from one another. The private sector is privately owned. Its goal is to make money. It's a sector organisation is created by a new enterprise or privatising a public sector organisation, hospitals and so on. And it is very, very competitive. Organisations are always looking for their USP, their unique selling point, as it's referred to. And of course, competitive advantage is a big business strategy. The private sector exists for one reason and one reason only, and that is to make money. Now, that doesn't mean that any organisation or business is not passionate about what it is that they do and what it is that they deliver. But the bottom line is the private sector makes the world go round. The private sector creates income. It creates opportunities for tax, for countries, and that, of course, goes towards GDP. So the private sector exists to earn money and only exists to earn money. Doesn't stop them being passionate about it, but that's why they exist. Stark contrast to the public sector, which is governmentally owned, and organisations also come under the public sector. And the goal is to provide services to and infrastructure to the people of that particular country. And most of these services that cannot be provided in the private sector. You can have private security, but you can't have a private police force. You can have private contractors, but you can't have a private army. So there is plenty of services in the public sector that exist solely to support the people and the infrastructure of the country, and they are the public sector. Now, they're funded through local or national taxes, or, as we saw earlier on, taxing on the GDP. And so as a result of that, you will find that spend in general and cost in general, believe it or not, is far, far more rigidly controlled than actually those at which are in the private sector. Now, you might think it would be the other way around, right? Because in the private sector, they exist to earn money. Well, they want to keep as much in their pockets as they can and release, very little when it comes to spending. But the bottom line is that the public sector, because it's governmental, very regimented, very bureaucratic, and because it is public money, is much, 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 much more rigid when it comes to spend. Finally, the voluntary sector, which is not for profit. Now, this does not mean that the organisation does not earn money. It means that the money that it earns must go into the services that it provides. This also does not mean that the CEO of Oxfam or the CEO of Bernardo's is on 27 grand a year. They're not. It also does not mean that you can't have a career in the voluntary sector. It is a genuine career path that you can go into, and very well paid, I might add, as well. We automatically hear that word voluntary and we think they need our help and they need our money and they need. And of course, in my view, the voluntary sector is fantastic. Everything from, looking after cancer patients to, orphan children to overseas and refugees and all sorts. If there is an area that cannot be provided by the public sector, or an area where the private sector are not going to profit from it, you will find the voluntary sector. So 3 very, very different sectors which provide business. And when it comes to facilities management, very, very different facilities management models for each one of those sectors. Any questions so far before we move on, or any input from either of you?
No, that's fine.
Cool, thank you. Right, so there we go. There's some examples. Tesco, Asda, McDonald's, B&Q, B&M. I had to put B&M because my wife loves B&M. Poundland. You go down your high street and they're all in the private sector. We shop in them. We spend money in them. They exist to earn money and profit. The public sector, in this case, the armed forces, the British Transport Police, the police in general, the fire brigade, the NHS, the ambulance service, plenty of schools. Who are not a part of an academic trust or private initiatives, are all public sector, and Her Majesty's Prison Service, the Civil Service, all the Institute of Apprenticeships and Technical Education, gentlemen, is in the public sector. The public sector is huge, and we've already spoken about why it exists. The voluntary sector, British Heart Foundation, Marie Curie, Cancer Research, as we've got there, but plenty of other organisations that we will all know that is specific to our own sort of lifestyles. For me, it's the military charities, SAFA and the Royal British Legion, and plenty of other sort of charities, all call signs and so on. And you guys yourself will know of charities that exist. Remember, any money that they make by donations or by governmental grants cannot be spread by dividend to those that work for the voluntary organisation. It must go back into and be audited as being shown going back into producing whatever it does with services or products for its existence. But that does not mean that you can't be on an exceptionally good salary. I think we've all been there at some point where we've listened to someone being grilled by a governmental committee from the voluntary sector, from a charity or whatever, or it's been leaked in the newspapers, and they're on 500 grand a year, and we're like, well, it's supposed to be in the voluntary sector. Give it all back to the business. That's not what it's about. You have people that get para dropped into the voluntary sector, from the private sector. And likewise, you get people from the private sector dropped into the public sector at the senior leadership positions, because they're employed because of their knowledge of management and leadership and strategic direction, not because they've come from the ground up in that particular organisation. Cool. So quick question then. Adam, Leicester University, private sector or public sector?
Oh, it's funny I was going to ask that. So it's private, I think, but I think it probably should be public. I think the universities are probably going more private now, but I don't know. That's my opinion of it. What
do you think, Mo? Private or public?
I actually think public, possibly.
You may or may not be surprised to know that that universities in general are in the private sector. They exist to earn money. Every single student that goes to university will pay anything between 9 and 14 grand a year, and that is money that they have literally got to produce or is taken off them in loans up to a certain age. and over a certain earning threshold, they will have to pay back a certain percentage. It is about money. Now, that's not to say that at one point it wasn't public sector. And certainly in the 70s and the 80s, most universities were public sector. But there have been far more private sector universities than there have public sector. There is a great deal of money in education and in what they used to call forum, i.e. universities. So private sector. Mo, you're in a school, part of an academic trust, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's definitely public.
It is, absolutely. It's public sector. It might be part of an academic trust, but it still has an input into local authorities. And if it has an input into local authorities, there is still some governance on spend, and it is very difficult to get money out of the system, correct?
Yeah, that's definitely right.
Yeah. So great. There we go. So let's move on. Okay, so when we had our little Kahoot at the very beginning there, we looked at the 70s, and what you're looking at here is two pictures from the 70s to the 90s, and from the 90s to the current to our current. Where are we? 2020, isn't it? Yeah, 2020. And we can see, if you just have a look at these two cones here, how the shift has been very much from operational to strategic. Throughout that period, from operational, where it had no input to the core business whatsoever. It supported the core business in the 70s to 1990, but it had absolutely no input whatsoever into tactical or strategic direction of the business. It was very much top down. You know, the boss said, you ran. Middle management said, you ran, and that was it. It was very much middle management turning around to you, and as the office tea boy or the office post, and being told what needed to be done and when it needed to be done, rather than you having any input whatsoever. It was very input specific, if you like, to coin a correct phrase in FM. It was very stringent, and it was directed from the top down. Now, fast forward to where we are now. There probably isn't a meeting that happens at your organisation, Mo, that's to do with the estate, cost, or risk without you. And likewise with you, Adam, when it comes to not just the estate, but the cost, the upkeep, and the strategic direction of the cost and synergies that you can provide going forward to the purser or anything else. You are very much ingrained in the tactical and strategic areas of your organizations. That doesn't mean to say that you're forever living in a boardroom, but it does mean that when it comes to particularly financial efficiencies, particularly corporate social responsibility, and of course meeting end user requirements, that you are, right in there, smack bang in the middle of being able to make sure that the organization can deliver. Any input from either on you on anything I've said so far before we move on? Do both of you recognise that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just almost think yourself lucky, because 40 years ago that was not the case at all. And I don't think actually we're, between the three of us, we're sort of old enough to perhaps remember that being certainly very much the case. In my view, if I'll be really honest with you, in my view, I look at these diagrams and I say to myself, well, actually, in my view, it's not just FM. Yes, we're looking at facilities management right now, but actually, if you look at a lot of businesses, businesses have changed. Development and organizations, the development of organizations has changed. Look at the current process, the current place where we're at right now. Organizations are changing the way that they work. In 50 years' time, they will look back to 2020 and they will say, terrible year, but also the year of the work revolution. Over the past 30 years, in my view, a lot of organizations, including those in the public sector, have turned very much, on its head, where actually the feedback into the tactical and strategic areas from the operational level, the frontline staff of providing services to a business, has been absolutely paramount. And successful organizations work very well by utilizing that sort of method rather than a top-down approach. So here is how the FM journey, really, the business attitudes, and I'll just leave that up there quickly. I'll just leave that up there for you while I just quickly in the background here prepare a video to show you, which will explain this in a little bit better fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing that screen. Let me get this going now. Just bear with me. Okay. Pause. Full screen. Oh, whoops. Why is that not? Oh, whoops. Oh, whoops. Oh, sorry, guys. Technical problems here. This is what happens when you have to use multiple different. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, include system audio, and I'm going to share screen 3. Okay, so it should have now changed, and you should now be able to see it. Can you see that? Everyone can see the video, yeah?
Yeah.
Great, okay. Right, I'll try and adjust the volume, but the key thing is to look what's happening on the screen. Remember, of course, you can watch this video in your own time from the Padlet on how, what is FM in the FM core subjects. Here we go then. Sorry about that. I was mid flow there, and my microphone muted. I was saying, sorry about chopping and changing between the screens, etc. But it's the only way is to stop this sort of screen share and change it. Yeah, so there you go. A short video, 90 seconds long, which very clearly sort of lays out where FM came from. Remembering it was from very operational to where it is now. Now we're in 2020 now. But even though it says 2010s, as we've discussed, Mo, before, and as we discussed earlier on today, Adam, the FM industry is absolutely enormous. If I could redesign the world, I'd redesign FM. And I think it's slightly too big for what it is, and you could probably, split it down even further to sort of workplace and building fabric. And sort of soft services and hard services, but we break that down in FM in general rather than actually in sort of compartmentalized, governed, industries. So the bottom line is that FM is enormous and has grown into a huge beast, and throughout the 70s, has changed its intent from true cost base all the way to where we are now, which is about innovation and change. And yet we've already gone through periods of innovation and change. That's the key thing with innovation and change. And professionalization is a constant journey, is that they're always going to repeat themselves. I don't know about you guys, open question, but the current COVID-19 situation, the way in which that's affected businesses and organizations work over the past 6 months, the workplace revolution. And I can tell you from service side FM clients and learning partners of mine, it's affected the FM industry a great deal. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it must have, to be honest, since obviously a lot of people are not even working in buildings anymore. I mean, it's all kind of all online now, isn't it? Most of it.
Yeah.
But I guess now slowly things are getting back to normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, there must be a lot of ways it's kind of affected the FM side of things.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, I mean, if you're a facilities manager, it's about managing properties and locations, and people and risk and cost and quality. And when you can't go into the workplace because of the risk posed to it, and you're trying to do it remotely, that's a hell of a lot of pressure. What about you, Adam, in your world?
Yeah, I sort of agree. It's a monstrous change. Agile working that everyone's obviously discussing now and everyone's pushing looks like the way we're going to go with Teams and everything else, and Microsoft Teams and Skype and everything else. But I mean, personally, I'm not a monstrous fan of it. I think if you lose the human element, even within facilities management, I think it's the wrong direction personally. I mean,
Yeah.
people will probably argue I know some of my big directors argue the other way, think it's the way forward, but I personally think that if you lose the human element of anything, it's very sad if you lose those sort of values and the people and human interaction. I think you'll find a lot more mental health issues and things like that from it personally.
Yeah, I agree. The human being is a creature of, social interaction. It needs other people. And what we can't do is we can't adopt a work revolution, which means that actually you get to come across less people because of risk. There is a very fine line between that which is mentally, that which benefits people through their mental health, and that which protects them through their physical health. And that is where the industries, and that is where health, and that is where governments and people are trying to assess where that line is, which is why we're in this period of ambiguity right now. Yeah, absolutely right. Let's move on. Okay, so now this diagram here. Oh, whoops! I'm getting some feedback there, guys. One of you. But this diagram here, very easily, just shows you the different services in facilities management. Now, I'm trying to find grounds maintenance there. It's not on there. It's not on there, but not because it doesn't exist. It's not on there because I didn't put it on. But I'm going to have to change that, I think, and remove mail services and put grounds maintenance in there because it's a huge area. But you're going to educate me, Adam, because it's not a soft service, is it? It's a hard service, isn't it? Or is it?
No, I class it as a soft service personally, with portering, catering, cleaning. I'd probably go that side rather than hard. Maybe.
Yeah. What do you think, Mo? Do you think grounds maintenance in general is a soft or a hard service?
I think, to be honest, that's still going to be sort of a soft service because with hard services is practically everything kind of internal of the building, more or less. And soft services tend to be kind of external. Not exactly, but it's a bit of a mixture. But no, it'd still be under soft services rather than hard, I think.
Yeah,
Well, you're both.
the
Go on.
compliance. It's weird because with ground maintenance you have got compliance side certainly around CS. So you could say that sits within the hard services areas, that you have got those kind of compliance side, but also it has got the operational side is probably a bit more soft. I'd say your day to day, your general service level agreements kind of more soft. I'd say.
Well done. Exactly the right answer. Exactly what I wanted to hear. You're both exactly right. It is soft services, of course it is. But the key difference between that which is a soft service and that which is a hard service is about legislation and compliance. If there is something the law says you have to do, then that is immediately a hard service. Fire extinguishers have to be checked every year. So believe it or not, they're a hard service. Lifts, and heating and ventilation and air conditioning and building management and all the rest of it, it has to either be done if it's in, or there are legislative or compliance regulations with all of those. And so as a result of that, they become hard services. If it's premises, building management, estate management in general, then it's going to be a hard service. If it's something you can control as a part of your process for financial efficiencies, then that's a soft service. And that's what separates the two: compliance, conformity, hard service. Contracts, having the ability to change service schedules and having the ability to use a bit of acumen with regards to costs in general, that's going to be a soft service. Okay. But the point when I said you were both exactly right, and Adam, your answer was exactly right, is because whilst grounds maintenance is indeed a soft service for all the things I've already said, there are areas that are immediately going to be a hard service area. You know, the tree protection order exists for a reason. You can't just go and chop a tree down or just take the top off just because, you know, the principal of the university doesn't like it, or because the head teacher in your school mode doesn't like it where it is. You know, you dabble and poke the tree protection order act at a peril, because it's not something to be trifled with. So actually, the maintenance of it, you could almost say, depending on the age of the tree and type of the tree, and even if it's listed, you know, I'm not talking about building listed, but I'm talking about tree protection order listed. You know, is something that you've got no option. You have to. So you would have to plan the maintenance. You would have to plan the cost, and that in itself, you know, you could almost say would be a soft service in cost, but a hard service in, you know, commitment, in obligation. Cool. I think we've all got that, haven't we? We move on.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it made it much more simpler actually, saying it like that.
Yeah. So soft services, money, control, and all the rest of it. Hard services, legislation.
It's just the legislation, isn't it? The different.
Yeah. Facilities management is still in transition. Dynamic and fluid industry. You're part of it. And as it says there, what was once a largely technical discipline, you know, and a very operationally focused discipline, is now, you know, completely and utterly turned on its head. You know, now is very, yes, there are operational elements of it, of course there is, but you're not going to find an operational practitioner that is not involved in some way in the tactical sort of strategic areas of a business. Now, that's not to say that a CEO can't spend money on the business until he speaks to the person that runs the post room. Of course not. But the nuance is that you've got someone who runs the post room and someone who is, you know, a chief customer officer of an FM company. That is the point of this industry, is that it is so wide that actually when you're actually at the level of managing facilities provision, rather than actually being in the operational theatre, i.e., you know, post and so on and so on, concierge, reception, front of house, security, even sometimes, you know, you are very much ingrained into the sort of tactical and strategic areas. And usually, you know, the more senior you are, the more your input is extremely valued because it's about meeting end user requirements, i.e. those people that work in the organization, and of course valued because of the cost. Did you know that a recent survey by CBRE, I say recent, it was 2018, so it's good enough for me. So 2017, so it's 3 years old. Survey done by CBRE 2017. They asked 5,000 employees what was the most important thing to them in the workplace. And they gave very few options, but they gave options. One of the options was salary. Another one was break time or lunch time. You know, another one was additional benefits, health insurance, flex benefit, and so on. Another one was the amount of workspace that they were allocated in the office. Another one was the work environment. Another one was the amount of people in the company. Another one was the company's ethos, ethics, and reputation, and all sorts. They covered every single area. They covered money. They covered desk. They covered workplace. They covered benefits. They covered, you know, they cut, you know, 20, 30 different options it was. And the results were staggering. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and it would be wrong to pull out a percentage, but I will tell you it was over 70%. 70% of 5,000 people. That is significant. That is, what, 4,000 people, around about that. It's 3,800 people. I mean, it's a hell of a lot. So 3,500 people. So that's a hell of a lot. 70% of people. Now, open question to you. Clearly you haven't got it in front of you, but just hearing what I've said there and using your experience, what do you think the overwhelming response was with regards to what's the most important thing for someone, an employer, an employee in a business? What do you think that was?
I suppose it depends on the demographic that was surveyed.
Yeah, they were all office based.
Yeah, I'd imagine people closer to the breadline, as it were, would be very much money related. So if it was pushed towards them, but a lot of it would be, I'd say, a lot to do with values of the organisation, the values, the way they organise it, like you say, the ethos of the organisation, really. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's an intelligent answer. Mo, what do you think?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
It'll take me 10 minutes. Where you been? So what do you think? Having listened to what I said there about this study by CBRE, what do you think was the overwhelming answer for over 70% of people with regards to what means most to them in the workplace? Salary or ethics or reputation or what?
I think, to be honest, for most people, it'll kind of be kind of workplace kind of ethos and how the dynamics are within the company. I mean, a lot of people look for that, I think, personally, anyway, rather than money. I mean, you could have the most highly paid job and not have very good sort of dynamics, and it's not really a good working environment. So I think people look more towards that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was the workplace. It was, what does the workplace look like? Do you feel special when you walk into work because of how it looks? Because we automatically, the way in which a workplace looks, we take that on very personally because we're giving a lot of personal time to an organization which isn't our family. A third of a day is spent working with people and our peers and the business that we work for. A third of the day is spent there, and we want that to be as enriching as possible. When you walk into an office that has got stained carpets and ceiling tiles hanging down and crappy lighting and a crappy desk and people are a lot less enthused to work in that sort of environment. When you walk into a brightly or a nicely lit office with nicely compartmentalized, perhaps if necessary, but and efficient and well laid out, comfortable to be in, nice to be in, people's mojo, people's enthusiasm, people's drive, people's capability and productivity goes through the roof. So workplace is the most important part by that survey anyway, the most important factor for people in the workplace, people in work, is the actual workplace environment. Yeah. If I had to ask either of you a question to define facilities management, you would probably say something along the lines of what we said earlier on, Adam. Facilities management is about supporting core business, wouldn't
you? Yeah.
So these three organisations here, and there are many others, but these three organisations here stipulate what FM is. Now, we are running short of time, and I have to finish at 13:45, so I'm going to zip through this. IWFM defines facilities management as that. FM is the integration of processes within the organisation to maintain and develop the agreed services which support and improve the effectiveness of its primary activities. The Facilities Society says that, and the IFMA say that. The key thing to take away from this slide or this point is this: they may all have different interpretations, but they all want to do the same thing, and it's all about supporting core business and remaining strategically aligned to that organization. That is what FM is all about. You can stretch it out, you can drag it out, but if you read each one of those, you'll find that they're all pretty much saying the same thing. Part of Unit 1 is to define facilities management and to quote an organisation and what they define FM as. But when I mark your work, I'm interested in how you define facilities management. Like I said, I'm interested to see how you define facilities management. Take 20 seconds, have a think about it, and see whether you can just spiel out a line or two. Just take 20 seconds, just while we'll hold this here for 20 seconds. All right, Adam. You don't have to. I'm putting you on the spot here, but have you got something off the top of your head that you could use to define facilities management?
Yeah, so mine would be around, so something like along the lines of facilities management is fundamental and paramount to support a core service. But I'd also add something in there about having the right values for staff to keep the human side of it safe, effective, and having the right values to for the staff side. I'm quite interested in that side, just making sure people are happy and things like that. So it's something around that, to be honest.
Excellent. So focusing around meeting the requirements of the end user in a safe, risk tolerant, workplace, essentially, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not
that's
just
good.
the end user, also supporting the actual users, your own staff, the facilities management staff, though they are there to support the end goal.
Yep.
You are there also. They need to feel valued to be able to achieve that. So let's swing around those values.
Good. Mo, what about you?
I think facilities management overall is like it's basically the management of all of a company's kind of largest sort of asset, building wise, and providing various sort of services to kind of comply with health and safety and for the comfort of the end user, the company itself and its employees, and ensuring a safe environment, I think, to be honest, overall.
Excellent. Good as well. And that's the thing, providing you use a little bit of logic, everyone's going to have a different interpretation of facilities management. I want you from this point forward to remember 3 words: risk, cost, and quality, because everything that you do in facilities management will be based around those 3 things. Everything that you do everywhere and in general is based around risk, cost, and quality. Whether that's a weekend away with a family, a walk down to the fair, or whether that's in business, looking at a supplier, or health and safety or anything. Risk, cost, and quality. We genuinely want the lowest risk possible to a level which is tolerable. If it's not, we want to transfer it out, and we want it managed elsewhere. We want the cost as low as possible, but in parity with quality. Now, in the private sector, we understand something in the private sector. We get what we pay for. And so actually, sometimes we like to go middle ground, pay the middle ground rate in order to get, the best service possible. Swap, however, to the public sector, and you're in a completely and utterly different world. The risk is negligible. There must be next to no risk whatsoever. The cost must be as low as possible, and the quality, is always driven much higher than that in the private sector. So it's almost like a reverse L, on a graph. The risk 0, cost 0, quality exceptionally high. Private sector, the risk down to sort of an acceptable level that it can tolerate. If not, it transfers out. the cost being as low as possible, but usually middle ground because you get what you pay for, and the quality, you know, as high as possible, but in parity with cost. So two completely and utterly different areas with regards to risk, cost, and quality, but they exist in tandem in every single sector, and particularly in FM. Cool. Right. Let's move on. So, what about the role of the facilities manager? Oh no, before the role of the facilities manager, let's look at the support services. Now, there are different types of support services. There are internal support services and facilities support services, and you can see some examples here. Now, when we look at facilities management in general, depending on the service provided by the organisation, let's say we're service side. A service side FM provider is a professional company that provides facilities management services. A local company to you, gentlemen, is Bellrock, and Bellrock also provide grounds maintenance, for example. Let's say, for example, Leicester University decided to withdraw all of their internal in-house provisions that it currently does as part of a cost shuffling, and it made your function redundant, then it would bring, and that's not a prediction, by the way, Adam, and it would then need to bring in a company to be able to deliver those services. And service side companies can deliver things like grounds maintenance and facilities management and so on. And they also produce lots of other areas, as you can see there, you know, everything from consultancy to space planning to compliance and health and safety operations. Adam, question for you. Is there such a thing as an off-the-shelf solution when it comes to FM services?
No.
No. And that is the reasons why, because what you want in your organization may be completely different to what you want. If I ran an FM company and you came to me, Mo, and you said to me, right, I've got some contractors that work for me. I want to carry on managing them, but I want you, Mike, to govern the actual services and make sure what they do is right. I'm not going to turn around to you and say, no, I'm sorry, not going to do that. And you say, why? And I say, because I'll have no leverage with them. You're the one that owns the contract. I can, you know, poke them in the chest as much as I like with regards to the quality of their output. But if I don't own something to poke them in the chest with, and you do, then actually there's no point me doing it. I'm not going to say that to you. Why am I not going to say that to you, do you think?
Because I guess you're the one who's kind of meant to be taking the lead, right?
Well, you're the one that's going to be paying me. That's the thing. You're the one that's going to be paying me. And I'm not going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. I may well advise, which they do, and I would say to you, look, it would be wise if you manage the contract still, but you wrote to each of these suppliers and, you know, gave me the authority, you know, written in front of them all that says that, you know, we are very much embedded, and that I am your performance arm. Because the bottom line is, Mo, I haven't got something to poke them in the chest with. I haven't got the service level agreement. I haven't got the contract. Even if you turn around and said, yeah, I like that idea, but no, I just want you to work with me and just be my eyes and just make sure they do it properly and just let me know if they do or don't. I'm still going to say to you, okay, fine. Even though I leave your premises and go to Adam, where Adam has given me all of his contracts, so all of his services, I manage his contracts on his behalf, and I engage with his suppliers on supplier relationship management meetings. I pay them, I work on their service level agreements, and I come together with Adam once every quarter and I give him a strategic meeting and feedback. Now I'm going to leave Adam's office building and go somewhere else with another completely different model. And that is the point, is that no model exists out there that is the same from one organization to another. And whilst there might be some very common factors between them all, there is no such thing as an off-the-shelf solution. It's always tailored to what is provided. And that is why facility support services are so wide, because whilst you, Adam, may well benefit from my project management experience and helping you restructure your grounds management, your grounds maintenance, you Mo will not, and actually will benefit more from providing you a help desk in addition to, you know, supplier relationship management for your contracts. So Facility support services are those additional services that can be provided, as well as the basic function of facilities management of compliance issues, reactive and planned maintenance, and so on. And likewise with internal support services, well, the internal support services are all those other departments that have to exist. They have to exist in order for organisation of people and to save time. And in the private sector, we save time to save money. In the public sector, we usually save time, in some cases, to save lives. In other cases, to save jobs. So, yeah, so those are the two different types of support services. FM, it's about what additional services can you provide. Internal is about what are those other services of an organisation that exist and why. So the role of the facilities manager, what is it? Well, in essence, it's this. Now, you will not be able to see in detail that particular screen, but I invite you along to the Padlet, as I said to you earlier on, and to take a good long look at this particular mind map here. This has been designed by Martin Pickard, one of the very few professors in facilities management. He's been doing this now for some time and continues to grow it. And, you know, I can see it probably better than you guys can. I'll put my glasses on. Let me try and find each one of you right now. Okay, so maintenance, there we go. Okay, so here we go. Crikey, I can only just see. The point being, I'm still going to continue to look. I want you to find where you are on this map and reference it and let me know where you are. I am still looking, but I don't want to eat any more time trying to find you because there are so many different areas. You know, you go from the bottom right.
On the Padlet.
Yeah, it's already on the Padlet. Yep, it's already on the Padlet, but you'll be able to see it there. And this is the point, you know, the role of the facilities manager. Well, you know, where do you want to go? You know, whether that's in the management side of things or whether that's in the services side of things or the property side of things. The point is that facilities management and the role of facilities manager is huge, you know, and you've already explained, Adam, you know, what your intent is with your career earlier on, and that path and the fact is that this industry will allow that path, will help that path, because there wouldn't be enough of what your intent is. There isn't simply enough experts out there giving advice in that particular area, whether that's an intent or whether that's, you know, a career dream. The point of the matter is it's perfectly possible. Mo, what you're doing is no different than that of a facilities manager of any location. It's just that your risks are different. And your cost model is different. Your risks are different because you're dealing with young children, you're dealing with young people. But the risks associated with that are no different than, you know, looking after an office environment. There are risks with people no matter where you go, and vulnerable people and young people. So so managing a school does not mean that you cannot manage, you know, a bank. When it comes to facilities management, you absolutely can. And you two guys will be able to find your location and your career, your current career, on this particular sheet. And like I said, I thought I had it then. I'm keen for you to point out where you are. In actual fact, Mo, I've already gone across quite a few that you could put yourself into. And
yeah, I was just looking at it now. There's
quite a few, and there's quite a few for Adam as well.
Isn't it?
I'm actually looking for grounds maintenance, compliance administration. Again, like I said, we'll be here all day.
It's on the left. On the
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. But take a good look at it. It's fascinating, and it really does make you realise just how big the industry is. Now, for the last 5 minutes, bit of a whistle stop tour. Functions of facilities management, getting right down into the nitty gritty now. The functions of facilities management. These are the 5 functions of facilities management. Maintaining operations, which is about meeting the end user requirements. Financial efficiency, making sure you get the best cost and best value. Business continuity, making sure that you can continue. And legal compliance, making sure that we comply with the law. And corporate social responsibility, our moral and ethical duty to ensure that we look after the environment and, of course, our people. And as we go through these, you'll see each one of these. Don't forget, of course, you will have access to this presentation that you'll be able to go through in your own time after this. And of course, you'll have the video as well in which to reference. Here, we're looking at the end user requirements. What's the workplace environment like? Is the temperature right? Is the heating right? Have they got parking? What's their system like? Their security like when they come into work? You know, is it impeding people? All of these different things are all about meeting end user requirements, very operationally focused, and it is about the workplace. It is about floor walks. It is about engagement with people and asking for their view. It is about making sure that your net leasable area of your particular location, that your primary circulation doesn't impede business, you know, making sure you're aligned to the business model. Then we've got financial efficiency, again, as we said earlier on, about cost synergies and cost savings. And it's about ensuring value for money. It's about whole life costing. And it's about cost benefit analysis. If I spend this now, how much will it cost me? If I spend this now, you know, how much will I save over X amount of years? Rather than if I tolerate the risk now and don't spend it, what actually are the risks imposed to me over a set amount of time, otherwise known as risk of return. Business continuity, we mentioned earlier on in our Kahoot. Disaster recovery is solely relative to that which is IT and the failure of IT, whereas emergency response is all about actually how do we get back into the building when we've got a flood? What do we do when there's a fire? And how do we react when there's a gas leak? Business continuity can be defined as the ongoing process of ensuring the continual operation of critical business processes through the evaluation of risk and resilience and the implementation of mitigation measures in accordance to Jane Wiggins' 2010 in Facilities Manager's Desk Reference, of which I recommend both to you. Legal compliance, well, we all deal with this every day, and we also know that if we wrote down all the legislation and compliance that we have to conform to, then actually we would never get to the end. The nature of business is that there is governance and boundaries, and we have to comply with those, or we risk, you know, tribunal, we risk reputational damage, or we risk, you know, financial penalty. So making sure that we comply with the law is incredibly important. Not just because of those aforementioned things, but also because of the safety of our people at work. No one wants to go to work and die. Nobody should go to work and accept that they might die, unless, of course, they're in the military or in the police. And even then, the organisations are bound under health and safety to ensure that the appropriate measures are put in place so that that risk is reduced, whether that's appropriate training or body protection or whatever. So the point is that legal compliance is a function of a facilities manager, and it is absolutely vital that we make sure that we, you know, comply with the law for all those aforementioned reasons. Corporate social responsibility, that moral and ethical duty to comply and conform with moral and ethical duty to ensure that we look after our environment and, of course, our people. And when we get it all right, it all goes well. And when we get it all wrong, well, we cry at rubbish in rivers and in the sea, at starving children, purely because there's no money in the local in the local economy in Africa, because, you know, we send all of our old computer parts over there and created a secondary revenue stream which is not taxed, and it has a real knock-on effect that people starve to death, as well as not have any jobs, or it affects their culture. All of this is part of corporate social responsibility. This particular model here, triple bottom line, there is a piece on it on Padlet, and you should read up on it. But this is a way in which an organisation can measure how it engages with its environment and people through corporate social responsibility policies. And it's about people, profit, and places, people, profit, and planet. There is a handout based upon triple bottom line, a system to measure how we invoke our corporate social responsibility policies. How responsible are we? This diagram here highlights that which is central to supporting a core business. If we said we defined FM and that's in the middle, then what goes around the outside are our core functions. And then what goes around the outside further to the core functions are those areas of facilities management which coalesce around the functions of management and, of course, the reasons why we do it. Strategic sourcing, and I'll let you read that for yourself just while I'll give you a minute on this. But strategic sourcing is all about making sure that we, as it says there, CIPS defines this as satisfying organisations' needs with the objective of delivering solutions to meet predetermined and agreed organisational needs. In terms of FM services, there are a number of options available, and there are some options there. Strategic sourcing is all about making sure that we go through a set of procedures in order to appoint a supplier, that we measure and govern the supplier and their services or product, that we regularly review costs, that we benchmark if necessary, and that where we can, we produce cost synergies and therefore produce cost savings. Strategic sourcing is about working with procurement specialists and seeking their advice. And as we said earlier, Adam, not being parochial and nepotistic about our own little environments and very protective of our own roles, but going to those experts in order to be able to, give us advice as we need it. So in short then, the facility manager in my experience are all of those points there. Very professional, very educated and knowledgeable, educated even vocationally. I've got some facility managers who have forgotten more than I'll ever know. And they exist at all levels within all businesses, whether that's one service line or one specialist area of grounds maintenance, or whether that is, one specialist area of looking after a building to, very senior strategic executive positions in senior companies looking after multiple service lines or hundreds of service lines. They understand their business, they understand their responsibilities, and both of you, know that your school, in your case, Mo, that your university, in your case, Adam, you know their strategic direction, you know what they will accept, what they will not accept, you understand their service lines, and their constraints and their factors. And that's very important. I find that wherever it is that I go, never do you come across a facilities manager that does not know the business in which it supports. It's huge, and this slide just goes to reinforce the huge depth of the modern facilities manager. So let's summarize. So we walked through an introduction of FM. We explored the 3 business sectors. We went on a 50-year journey tracking how FM has changed and why. We defined FM and the support services, and we looked at the role of FM. And then finally, we discussed strategic sourcing and looked at the modern FM. Now, we were a bit late starting, 15 minutes. We waited for you, Mo, at the beginning there. So and I have to finish at 13:45, I'm afraid. This deck is made available to you, and I will email you both today with that direct link for it. Failing that, please go onto the Padlet, go into the workshops area, i.e. delivered workshops, and you will see it there, Introduction to FM. Do please go through this in your own time, and mixed with the Padlet on where I showed you earlier on, Adam, in the FM core subjects, in the What is FM, you will find all the resources you need in there in order to meet your evidence that you need to produce for Unit 1. Any questions very quickly?
No, that's fine.
Cool. So look forward to completing Unit 1, all the LOs as per the assignment, and I will send you both those assignments via one file. Don't wait for it today. I'm going straight onto another workshop after this. It will be this evening. You will get that. And the challenge is to use various methods to evidence your understanding, presentation and written. You will have 2 to write about, you will have 2 to create a presentation about, and then the final one will be a professional discussion with me. All details will be mailed to you via one file, as I said, either tonight or tomorrow. So you don't have to jump onto something straight away. Cool, excellent. You've got my details. You know how to get hold of me. Like I said, a little bit rushed at the end there, but we finished on time, and now I've got another place to go to. If you do have any questions or anything that you want to discuss, in addition to what we've already covered this afternoon, then by all means reach out to me and we'll arrange for some one-to-one time. And I won't be at 1,000 miles an hour. I'm very conscious. We've had not very many activities, apart from our Kahoot at the beginning there. So if you need me, then do please reach out to me. And that's exactly what I'm there for. But for now, what you just need to do is let this soak in, perhaps review it in your own time on Padlet, and wait to hear from me on one file on your assignment. Okay?
Great, thank you.
That's great, yeah.
All right. Well, it's now 13:46. I'm going to stop sharing and close the stream, close the recording. And that's the end of the workshop. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. See you soon.